Come to a comfortable, we'll start in child's resting pose. So knees can be wide, knees can be together, personal preference, wherever you are. Stay there, I'm just gonna adjust a little bit more, wherever you are. Just actively reaching back with your hips. Some people, their hips sit up really high, so if it's tight for you, then just reach back with your hips. You reach forward with your hands. If you have blocks or straps and know that you like them, that's maybe some props that you might want to have handy. A sweater or blanket as well, for especially final shavasana. Nothing's worse for me when you finish up class and you're laying there and you can't focus because you're so cold. So as we wait just another moment longer, just start to slow your breath. You can close your eyes. Maybe you roll your forehead back and forth, giving yourself a little head massage. Really focus on breathing into the back body. So while you're in child's resting pose, as you inhale, feel the back expand. And feel it deflate with the exhales. Just a couple housekeeping rules. Drink water when you need to. Good pain versus bad pain. Good pain is burning muscles. Bad pain is sharp pain, like pain in the joints. So those are things that you want to avoid. So obviously, sorry, getting coffee. No worries. So yeah, just really listening to your body. If I give a cue that doesn't feel good within your individual body, you're not obligated to do it. My general rule of thumb is if a pose feels good in your body, you get a nice stretch, that means you're doing it right. If you get to a point where you're holding your breath or you start going into panic mode, you've likely gone too deep into the pose. So rather than panicking and flailing out of it, because our brains will remember that, and our brains will think that what we're doing is unsafe, and it just kind of slows down any progress. Instead, if you've gone too deep, just come out of the pose a little bit, maybe a lot, but then finding a point where you can hold it and keep it. And always moving again slowly into everything and out of everything. Since this is an early morning class, it's not going to be too rigorous. It's going to be more so just like a wake up the entire body. I might have the music a little bit louder, just so that maybe it'll entice me to talk less. But again, I just really want to focus on like moving with music. If you're like me and you like to groove with music, then just really pay attention to that. Otherwise, maybe just listen to me ramble. Okay, after that little spiel, I think that's all the housekeeping things. Yeah, just listen to your body. Do what's best for you. Take child's resting pose at any time you need to. So from this child's resting pose, again, really reaching the hips back, reaching the fingers forward. Oh, last thing, I discovered this webcam's really bad, so I'm probably gonna get a better one. So hopefully the quality will improve soon. Okay, now let's get to it. Child's resting pose, reaching the hips back, reaching the fingers forward. You can even try tenting the fingers. If you've got a block, maybe you're up high, just so that you're not cranking through the neck too much to get the neck down, you can always put a block here to rest your forehead on. Keeps the spine in a little bit better of alignment. And slowing the breath even more here. Really breathing into the back body. And really emptying the lungs with the exhales. See how long and slow you can get your breath. Taking just a couple more breaths here. If you've got a block here, moving it out of the way. And all we're going to do here is shift forward. So maybe as we come up on our knees, slide the hands back so that you can stack into a nice tabletop. Maybe you have a little bit of an extended tabletop. We're just going to kind of work into waking up the body here. So moving the hips forward. Come as deep as feels good in your body. So maybe you stop at tabletop. Maybe you come to kind of this modified plank position. Or maybe you can lower your hips all the way down and come into this kind of gentle upward facing dog. You can see my thighs are on the ground, my elbows are kind of bent here. And then just pushing hips back, child resting pose. Inhale, coming forward again to your depth. Exhale, push back. Inhale, coming forward. Exhale, back. Do that a few more times at your own pace. On the next inhale, let's come to meet in a tabletop position. We're going to bring the right hand and place it more centrally underneath us, and then reach the left arm up. Just getting a nice little twist here. Maybe looking past the left thumb. See if you can stack that wrist over the shoulder. Open the chest a little bit more. And slowly lower this arm. We're going to thread the hand all the way through. Coming down onto that left shoulder, the right hand. I'm going to turn so you can see the right hand can plant wherever feels good. You can use it to push a little bit deeper. Or if you like as well and want a little bit more, you can extend the right hand overhead and then start walking it back behind you, looking up past that right armpit. Slowly unravel, coming back to our tabletop. This time we're going to plant the left hand down firmly, reach the right arm up, looking out past the thumb. If it feels okay on your neck. Try to stack the wrist over top of the shoulder. And then shifting your gaze down onto your left hand, threading that right hand through, coming onto the right shoulder. Place the left hand wherever it feels good, or maybe it reaches overhead, and then walks over. Just allowing for a little bit of a deeper twist, bringing the gaze up past the left armpit, trying to keep the hips square. Slowly unravel to tabletop and come back to child's resting pose. We're going to do that little sequence again, just so the body really has an opportunity to just kind of warm up into it. You know, we do one round just kind of as a learn and kind of warm up, and then the second round you have a little bit more freedom because your body knows what it's doing now. So let's do 5 of these child resting pose to tabletop or upward facing dog, whatever variation we're doing. So we'll do 5, and I'm not going to talk through it, so it's going to be with your own breath, and just see how slow you can go. If you don't complete everything by the time I'm done talking, I'm kind of giving an opportunity to finish up. But so we'll do 5 of those at the end of the last one, and you can just count with your fingers if you think you'll lose count. I always tap with a finger when I need to keep track. Then we'll come up and do left arm up first. Hold it for 2 breaths, 2 slow breaths. Thread through, hold it for 2 slow breaths. Come back up. Other side, hold it for 2 slow breaths. Thread through for 2 slow breaths. And then we'll come back to the child's resting pose. So let's come in child's resting pose right now. And you can begin working with your own breath. Moving through 5 of these. Whenever you get to your tabletop, no rush. Taking out the left hand for 2 breaths. Holding everything here for 2 slow breaths. Wherever you are, taking your time to finish. We'll meet in the child's resting pose for 2 or 3 breaths here. Come back through to tabletop, placing the wrists under the shoulders. Just take little circles here. We're going to warm up a little bit more into the wrists. Gently, one direction. The more forward you bring your shoulders, the more intense it'll be on your wrists. So if they're not ready for it, just take really small circles. And then as they feel a little better, you can start taking bigger circles. Really grip with your fingers. So we're just going to quickly show. You don't want any space between your hand like this. You want this knuckle pushing down, and a good way to do that is to grip with your fingers. So clawing into the mat here. Switch the direction of the circles. Again, you can start really small with your circles, almost like in a spiral motion. Progressively get bigger and bigger. Sit your bum onto your heels. We're just going to stretch into the front of the forearms here. So we're going to make two fists. Put our fists together so your knuckles will kind of fit between one another. Bring the tops of your fists right here down onto the mat. So the elbows are splayed out to the side, and they can start all the way down like mine are here. And all we're going to do is, so I'm keeping my fists kind of right under my chest. All we're going to do is lift, try to straighten the elbows here. Once you get up, you'll feel that stretch. So go slow, it can be really intense. Keep pushing the fists together, the knuckles together as you come up. Hold it, and slowly come down. You can be in any position that feels good. So if you're more in a tabletop position, again, make any adjustments that you need to in your body, so long as you do them slowly and mindfully. Do this 2 more times. And come back to tabletop. From here, we're going to work into the legs a little bit. Let's step the right foot forward. So it doesn't have to be anything pretty. Use your hand. We're just going to come to this 90-90 stretch again. 90-90 starting position. If it feels okay to stay down, then you can bring the hands down. This is somewhere where the blocks can be good. It just helps keep the upper body a little more upright. And I'm just kind of heel toeing my front foot forward so I can come into this really low lunge. Working to my depth. Recognizing that the deeper I get, the more my hips are going to splay open. So once I get to my depth, I'm just kind of squaring up my hips a little bit. That way we're working on both the strength and the flexibility factor. A lot of people are really tight in their hips, but if you get too loosey-goosey in your hips, it has a lot of issues. So might as well always focus on both. And we're just hanging out here. If you like a little bit of movement over stillness, you can kind of rock a little bit. Maybe it's big rocks, maybe it's just gentle little pulses. Or maybe you maintain that stillness. Set your drishti, your gaze. You can even close your eyes. Sometimes I get dizzy when I close my eyes, so I don't often close my eyes in a class during practice. But if you keep your eyes open, then just pick a spot on the floor in front of you and challenge yourself to keep your gaze there and breathe. If you want a little bit of a challenge or just some more um, sensation, with the top of your back foot down, pressing against the mat, you can lift that knee up a little bit, just bringing a little bit more strength into this. If you don't have blocks and it's already kind of awkward to hold this, then just stay where you are. Otherwise, you can kind of play around with that and squaring up your hips if you're lifting up that back knee. Come to your depth a little bit more, so let your hips splay open. And then slowly square them up again. Push down into the hands as you shift back. And we're just going to come into this half monkey split stretch here. So flexing through the front leg. You should feel a stretch along the left back side of the leg through the calf, the hamstring there. Again, think about squaring your hips up. You can stay right here, or you can start melting your rib cage down towards your thighs. Trying to keep a flat back so we're not rounding too much here. You can see I've got my forearms on the blocks, but do whatever feels good for you. Breathe in here. Set your dristy again. Slowly coming out of it. Taking it slow. Maybe just setting the blocks off the side a little bit. We'll come back to a child's resting pose before we switch sides. Stay there for a couple breaths. Inhale, come back through to tabletop. Pick up the left leg or the other leg, depending on which one you started with. So just heel toe your foot forward. If you've got your blocks, use them again if you'd like. And we're just coming into this low, deep lunge again. Same thing with the hips. Once you find your depth, if the hips are really splayed open, and just come out of it, squaring them up. And you can work with little pulses here. Let the hips splay open so you can go deeper and square up. Again, that's working on the depth and the strength. Coming to your depth one more time. And squaring up the hips. Pushing through the hands as we shift back. So the hips are over that back knee, flexing through the front foot. You can scooch that left foot more forward. Again, just noticing what your hips are doing, if they're really askew or if they're relatively squared up. Flex, flex, flex through that foot. And then if you want more of a stretch, you can think about closing off the gap, starting up here. So we think rib cage down first. If this isn't starting to go, then that's fine. You want to keep a relatively straight spine, so just set up your arms however feels comfortable for you. Think about lengthening out through the crown of the head with the inhales. Exhales, fold even a millimeter deeper. I find when I implement that inhale, extend out through the crown of my head, exhale, fold a little bit deeper, it helps me focus on the here and now as well, which makes this practice even more of a moving meditation, which is what we're kind of after. Avoiding the monkey mind wandering. Again, if you ever feel like you can't hold it, just come out of it a little bit. Maybe if you're leaning forward, you lift up. Maybe if you shift your leg forward, you shift it back. On the next inhale, slowly coming out of it, dragging that foot back. You can always aim to move a little bit slower than you want to. Sit the hips back. We're just going to take a couple more gentle stretches for the upper body here. I'm going to turn this way for this one. Starting with whichever hand you want. I'm starting with my right hand. Reaching the fingertips over to the side. Keep the opposite hip glued down to whatever hand is reaching out. So for my right hand reaching out, I'm gluing this left hip down. So I'm just avoiding letting it lift up, gluing it down as I reach my left arm overhead. Trying to get this whole side body stretch. So by gluing the hip down and then reaching out through these left fingers, you're going to get even more glorious stretch. If you've got a lot of space, you can extend the other arm out. Maybe bring your gaze up past the left arm. Breathing here. On the next inhale, coming all the way up. Exhale. Inhale, reach to the other side. Getting set up. Keep this hip glued down. Other arm reaches overhead. Maybe the hand on the ground scooches out to the side. And the option of bringing the gaze up past the right arm. If that doesn't feel good on your neck, then I implore you to just set your gaze elsewhere. Again, using our eyes to help keep the mind in a calm, meditative state. Next inhale, come all the way up. Exhale. Stay there. I'm just turning. If it's really uncomfortable sitting on your knees, again, just a little fun way that I found to use blocks. If you have blocks, with my feet together, if I lift up my butt a little bit and kind of tuck the blocks under the side, take some of the weight out of the bones on my feet and ankles. And it just makes it a little bit more comfortable. If you've got it, or you can sit anyway if you see fit. We're just gonna open up to the shoulders and the chest a little bit. So bringing the arms back behind us, interlocking all 10 fingers. If you must, if it just feels better to keep the wrists apart, then by all means you can stay here. But if you're able to, squeezing the palms and the wrists together as much as you can, squeezing the shoulder blades together, it's just gonna help open up through the chest, through the shoulders even more. But if you're really tight and all you can muster is with wrists apart, then you're still getting a stretch. So getting set up, lifting through the sternum. My favorite cues of imagine a rope attached there, and someone's lifting up on it. So lifting through the sternum, you can keep the chin tucked. Maybe right here is enough for you. Or maybe you can reach back with the arms back and down, maybe even touching the mat. If you're there, again, keep lifting through your sternum. Option from here, if you still want more, would be to slowly release the head back. Again, always coming out slowly if you can't hold it, but trying to stay in some variation. Coming all the way up and out of it. We're going to stretch to the shoulders a little bit differently here, getting set up for a puppy pose. So you can come into a tabletop, and from here we're just going to walk the hands forward. So maybe you rest your forehead on the mat, so it kind of looks like a child's resting pose with the hips raised up. Or maybe if you're really tight in your hips, this is what your child's resting pose looks like all the time. We're reaching the hands forward, and we're trying to let the chest, so this is me in a straight line, we're trying to let the chest melt down, so you can see the change there. Straight line, letting it melt down. Same thing, work with your breath. Inhale, maybe come out of it a little bit. Exhale, release the chest down, even a millimeter more. If that feels kind of easy for you to intensify it a little bit, because that variation I had my forehead down. If you want a little more intensity, you can have your chin down, so you're looking forward, up between your two thumbs. Same thing, letting your chest melt down. You can make any minor adjustments. I just slid my hands a little bit more forward there. Hold it for a couple more breaths. And wherever you are, try lifting the chest a little bit. If you're deep into it, you can feel kind of precarious coming out of it, so just go slow. Take a little breather and tabletop. And we're going to come down, but this time it is slightly different variation. So come down to the forearms. All we're doing for this one is we're tenting the fingers so the fingers touch. So not the palms, we're not in a prayer position here, we're in a tented, just the fingertips touching. Scooch the arms out as you need to. And the same thing, let the head melt through, trying to bring your ears between your biceps. And then you can pick up the forearms here. If you need to scooch them more forward, more back, just slowly, gently play around with it. Holding this for a few rounds of slow breathing. If you want a little bit more here, you can even lift up your head and bring more of your chin down. If you try that and you feel that it doesn't serve you, you're just going back to putting your forehead down. Pushing through the elbows, maybe lowering the forearms as you come out of it. Child's resting pose again. We'll work a little bit coming up to tabletop. We'll work a little bit in some downward facing dogs. We're not going to do much standing stuff today. Keep it gentle for early morning. So you can tuck your toes, lift your hips up, walk it out here. First downward facing dog. You do little pulses through the shoulders. It's the same thing as we did with kind of our puppy pose. My ears are between my biceps here. And then I let my chest melt down and come out of it. You're not flinging too much or using momentum. We're mindfully doing this, opening up through the shoulders, coming back up for a straight line. Your knees can be bent, ribcage can be on your thighs, whatever feels good. Bring the feet together. We're going to swivel on the feet, bringing the left heel down in contact with the mat. Your right foot, maybe you're on the toe, whatever feels good. But all we're doing is just getting a side body stretch along the right side. Coming back through center, lowering the right heel down. Again, whatever your left foot does, just getting a side body stretch along the left side here. Come back through center. Inhale, come forward to plank. If that's too much, you can always lower to your knees and then come back to downward facing dog from your knees as well. So let's do a couple just from our knees. A little lower, kind of to a tabletop, and then shift the hips as far forward, just like we did with child's pose. And shifting forward, but now we're in downward facing dog. Down to the knees, maybe shift forward. Pull the hips back, lift the knees, as the hips lift up. If that feels good and you want more, just doing it in plank. Coming forward, you can see I'm really up on my toes, really pushing forward. And then coming all the way back. You really want to get the spine into this, whether you're on your knees. Again, you can get a lot of anterior pelvic tilt as you shift forward. Just making it more wave-like. So tucking the chin, if you're doing plank version, you can bend the knees. Just undulating through the spine here, play around with it, do what feels good. If you want more of a breakdown from plank here, I'm tucking my chin, bending my knees, leaning with my hips. Oh, sorry, I did the wrong cue there. I leave my chin up for this one. Bend with the knees, lead with the hips. Chin is up off my chest, and then I bring my ears between my biceps. And then I tuck my chin, round through my back, tuck my tailbone down, plank. Bend my knees, lead with my hips. Ears come between my biceps. Wherever you are, from knees, we're doing plank. Let's do a couple more of these. Your hands and forearms are burning. It's okay. See if you can hold it. You can always take child's resting pose. That's all lower the knees here. Take a quick child's resting pose. Roll out the wrists if you need to. Let's actually do some extensions. So all we're doing is just pulsing the hand here. So my hand's staying big, but then I'm just kind of extending to the fingers. You can do that in child's resting pose. Let's go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come back up. Always the option to do these from tabletop. We're going to do some three-legged dog and downward facing dog, but if that's too much, you can do it from tabletop and just lift up one leg. Just play around with twisting, bringing it out to the side. Really, you can make it your own, because that's all we're going to do from downward facing dog. Picking up the right leg first, bending through the leg, opening up through the hips. And maybe bringing the leg around, pulling it forward into a plank. Just get some backside leg strengthening. Come back up to three-legged dog. Maybe you want to take some circles. Give me bent leg, circles, straight leg. Take some free form movement here. Be exploratory. Get weird with it. Or make it smaller, just hold stillness. Little pulses to work into the muscles. And let's lower that leg down. Other side. So again, do it from tabletop. Just moving that leg around. Or from downward facing dog, pick up that left leg. Playing around with this side for a couple breaths more. And lowering that leg down. Coming down onto the knees. Moving the ankles off the side as we lower all the way onto our bums. We're going to come into cow face pose here. So what we're aiming to do with the legs, and if you're really tight, maybe all you can muster is a cross-legged position. But what we're trying to get to is stacking the knees on top of one another. So you can see I'm using the knife edge of this foot to kind of walk this leg out. Kind of shift around, get comfortable. If one hip is really lifted, then and just work with where you are. If this is terrible, like this foot can be more upright, so it's more like the setup for the spinal twist. This is fine too. We just want a bit of a hip stretch here, feeling it along the outsides. For me, I've got my right leg on top, so I'm going to take my right arm and lift it up, and then reach down my back. I'm going to turn this way just so you can kind of see in the mirror here. Then I won't have to shift too much. So hopefully you can see that. So right arm lifts up and reaches back. I'm just using my fingers to walk my hand as far down my spine as possible. I'm taking my other hand, bringing it back behind me, and then reaching up my spine. Now, a lot of times in this pose, we're clasping through the fingers and pulling to get deeper into it. We don't want to use clasping here. So if you can touch your fingers, that's great, but don't grab on. They can just kind of say hi to one another. If you're nowhere near your fingers, that's fine too. But just kind of using your fingers to, maybe you shift. You can see my back arm is kind of shifting there to see if I can get it up a little bit higher. Once you come to a point where you can hold it, take a couple breaths here. You can even hinge forward a little bit to get deeper into the hips. Next, inhale, come up. Exhale, release the arms. So the right arm's starting to go in a little bit numb there, that's okay. Sit back. You have your hands behind you, and we're just going to switch the legs here. It's the same thing. Cross-legged if you need to. More of this elevated top knee position, or you can use that top foot, the knife edge of the foot, to kind of shimmy yourself into position. Sometimes I have to move this bottom shin out of the way a little bit so that my hips can sit a little bit nicer. But again, just do what you feel you need to do. With my left leg on top, I'm taking my left hand, reaching it back behind, walking my fingers down my spine, using my skin to even go a little bit deeper. So there's a little bit of clasping, but we're just not doing it with our fingers. This is my tight side, so I'm taking my right arm back behind me, shifting, doing whatever I need to. Once you get to a point of comfort and you can hold it a little bit, I'm just breathing here. Maybe hinging forward to get a little bit deeper into the hips. It doesn't have to be a big movement. On the inhale, coming up out of it. Exhale, release. Roll out the shoulders. Come backwards. Roll them forwards. Sitting back to release the legs. I'll work a little bit. I'm just checking the time here, see how I'm doing. I want to have an actual decent Shavasana for this class, so I don't want to go over. We're going to come into Dandasana, so just this seated straight leg pose. We'll take a little stretch here. Again, yoga is really good for stretching through the hamstrings and strengthening through the quads. But a lot of times you can miss out on a nice quad stretch and strengthening for the hamstring. So we're not going to hold this one too long. But seeing as hamstrings are still tight for a lot of people, we're definitely still going to do it. We're just going to follow this one with a quad stretch. Same thing, as I always say with forward folds, we're not trying to get our head down. We're not rounding here. If that feels really nice, you're more than welcome to, play around with it, but just recognize you're getting more of a stretch through the back here. If your head's coming down, you might probably still feel it through your legs, but we want to focus on our legs right now. So if you bring your rib cage down to your thighs first and work with your breath, inhale, lengthen out through the crown of the head. Exhale, fold. If you really flex your feet and even engage the muscles here, flex them so hard that your heels lift up off the mat. When the front of the legs is engaged, that naturally opens up the backs of your legs. So it just might help you open up a smidgen more. But wherever you are, just enjoying it. Being grateful for what your body can do. Helping relax your body into this and letting it know that this is a good thing. And bearing in mind too, first thing in the morning, we're not going to be nearly as open as we would be, let's say, if we took a class later in the day. Inhale, coming halfway out of it. exhale. Inhale, coming all the way out of it. So work into the quad a little bit. I want to try this. I don't know how successful it'll be, but we're going to lift up one leg and bring the foot back by the hip. So we've got one bent leg, one straight leg. You can hinge back here. Maybe you'll already get a stretch through the quad. If you're not really feeling anything, if you can kind of go all the way back, there's always even the option. So right now I'm on my forearm. There's even the option of laying all the way back to get it. Arms can come up overhead, so you're just getting that nice front body stretch. It's a way to get even more. It might kind of be uncomfortable on the foot, but you can lift up the hips and bring the foot more underneath the hip, and it'll intensify the stretch a little bit more. Try to keep the knees as close together as possible. If you were fine with your foot on the outside of the hip, then just stay there. Wherever you are, trying to push that left knee down into the mat. That's going to help get even more of a stretch as well. Taking one more breath here. And on your next inhale, working your way up. Straightening through that leg and bending through the other. Maybe this is enough of a stretch and pushing that knee down into the mat, or you can hinge back to any depth, or again, you feel a stretch there. Wherever you are, focusing on the breath. One more breath here. On the next inhale, working our way all the way up. Straightening through that leg. Let's come into a little wide straddle. So separating the heels only so much that you can stay seated upright. We want more of an anterior pelvic tilt here. So posterior pelvic tilt is when we're sitting back. So if you find you can't really sit forward, then bring your heels closer together. Just don't be in as wide of a straddle. Same concept. Work with your breath. Your feet can be flexed, pointed. You can have a demi point. So that's where the feet are pointed, but the toes are kind of flared up. This one's my favorite. I think it feels really nice. Focus on bringing the rib cage down. So hinging forward. Use your hands. Walk forward. Once you come to your stopping point, we're working with our breath again. Inhale. Lengthen out through the crown of the head. Exhale, fold even just a millimeter deeper. Set your drishti somewhere. Keeping the spine relatively straight, so resisting the temptation to curl. That's why with the inhale, we focus on lengthening out through the crown of the head, and exhaling, folding with that straight spine. Inhale, come a third of the way out. Exhale. Inhale, come another third of the way out. Exhale. Inhale, come all the way out. Sitting back as you gently bring the legs together. Come into a butterfly stretch here. The soles of the feet are together. Grabbing the actual foot rather than the toes. Letting your feet open up like a book. And just hinging forward here. Rib cage down first. Inhaling, come part of the way up. And coming all the way up. Let's bring our right ankle to the outside of our left ankle to the outside of our right hip. Right leg crosses on top. So here we are coming into the spinal twist. So we want to keep this knee up. Sitting up straight, so grounding down through the hips again. Make sure that rope attached to the crown of the head and so it's pulling you up. Shift the chest towards that right leg. Bring the right hand behind your lower back. And without using this left hand too much, just use your strength to see how much you can twist. Try to look past your right shoulder. With the inhale, sit up a little bit taller. Exhale, twist a little bit deeper. Do that 2 more times without using this left hand. And then if you want a little bit of torque, you can even just grab the knee and twist a little bit deeper. You can hook the elbow onto the knee. Twist, 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 slowly release. Take a little gentle counter twist. Come back through center. If you want to just, sorry, I was thinking, you can just switch up the legs here if you want to try a little. This really isn't that hard, but it can be really confusing if you've never done it before, but a fun way to switch it. Keep your feet exactly where they are. Like the only thing that's going to shift is like this foot, it will go off the knife edge and like come onto the ball of the foot. But all I'm going to do here is twisting, because I can't twist this way. You'll see that you stop. So I'm twisting away from this top leg. See, my feet are kind of pivoting as I spin all the way around and lower my bum. And then my other leg is on top. So heel toe your legs, shift accordingly. And then we'll do the other side. So without using this now, right hand, bringing the left hand behind us, looking past the left shoulder. Not using the right hand. Inhale, lengthen out through the crown of the head. Exhale, twist, just using strength here. Suck your belly in. That can sometimes help. Inhale, grow a little taller. Exhale, twist. Do that 2 more times. And now if you want a little bit more torque, use that hand, the right hand. Slowly release. Take that little counter, twist, back to center, and just release the legs here. Come to lay on your backs. Make sure you've got that sweater or blanket nearby. We're going to do one more pose, 1 or 2 more poses, and then Shavasana. So, laying supine, knees are bent, taking a supine figure 4 here. So crossing one leg on top of the other knee, flexing through the foot of that top leg, and lifting up that other foot, threading the hands through. You can grab behind the thigh or on top of the shin, pulling that left knee. Well, for me, it's my left knee towards my chest as I push out on my right knee with my right elbow. Slowly release. Switch up the sides. Releasing this hold. Taking any final pose that your body needs. Maybe it's happy baby, it can be supine butterfly, supine twist, anything else that calls to you. If you want more hamstring, you can take a hamstring stretch here, use your hands, pull that in. Make it your own. Whenever you're ready, getting set up for your final shavasana. Maybe it's more traditional, the legs straight, arms by your side. Or if you're like me and that's too much on your lower back, you can bend up the legs, let the knees rest against one another. I've got my arms, my hands on my head, and it feels good, so I'm likely going to stay like this. Slow in your breath. Closing out the eyes. Relaxing every muscle in your body. Relaxing every muscle in your face. Getting heavier and heavier. So much so that you start to sink down into your mat. Like you're laying on a soft mattress. Focusing on your breath or the sounds around you. When the mind inevitably wanders, just gently bringing it back to the present moment. And doing that time and time again. And I'll let you know when we're done this self-guided meditation. the mind just wander and gently bringing it back. Starting to wiggle your fingers, your toes, extending to the legs if they weren't already. Reaching the arms up overhead. Taking a big good morning stretch. And when you're ready, rolling over into a fetal position. Hang out here for a slow breath. And pushing ourselves up to a comfortable seated position of your choice. Taking our 3 final breaths together. So grounding down through the sit bones, sitting up tall, growing out taller through the crown of the head. Wrists rest on the knees, palms facing up. Pointer fingers and thumbs gently touch. Let's inhale through the nose, filling the lungs. Exhale through the mouth, letting everything go. Inhale, shrug the shoulders up towards the ears. Exhale, let it all go. Last one, inhale. Bringing our palms together through the heart center, pushing the thumbs against our chest. Maybe feeling our hearts beating. Being grateful for our bodies. Being grateful for our minds. Being grateful for everything we have in our lives. And being grateful that we took the time for ourselves and our practice this morning. Gently curl up the outer edges of your mouth, bringing an ever so slight smile onto your face. Just a little bit more lightness. Take one more slow breath here. And in closing, we say, Namaste.